Right, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to session 8, and that is political culture. If you observed in the previous session, I made reference to the fact that if leaders will work effectively, they also would need followers who perhaps possess the right, political culture or operate within a very important or enabling political culture. That is why it's important that you pay attention to this one. The political thinkers have over the years acknowledged the importance of attitudes, really, values and beliefs of people. And that's why I've always argued that if we really want to develop as a people, we need to change our attitudes. Otherwise, we'll teach all the theories, development will elude us. Perhaps we'll have to wait to the second coming of Christ. It won't happen if you don't change our attitudes. That one is not a soothsayer who is telling you I won't develop. If we don't change the attitudes, we will never, we'll teach all the theories, we will never develop. It's as important as that, as simple as that. However, such thinkers did not see themselves or see them as part of the political culture of a country. This position has changed significantly. It is against this background that this session helps us in appreciating the extent to which beliefs, symbols, values, attitudes, among others, influence the political process of a country. These systems of beliefs, symbols, and values determine how a people interpret the proper role of government and how that government itself is organized. So take note and sit back and enjoy. So the session really deals with these specifics. What is political culture? The second is the civic culture, the history and methods of political culture, and then the changing political cultures. These things will engage our attention here. So what is political culture? Every society impacts its own characteristic set of norms and values to its people. And the people, in turn, have a distinct set of ideas about how the political system is supposed to work, about what government may do to them and for them, and about their own claims on the political system and their own obligations to it. It's not always that we asking what the system will do for us, but it's also important that we ask ourselves, what are we going to do for the system? Because the two are important for the state to endure. So we according to Sidney and Weber, who are credited to be the key actors, the leading lights, really, when we come to political culture. They have also defined political culture, or have defined political culture, as the system of empirical beliefs, expressive symbols and values which define the situation in which political action takes place. And Andrew Haywood, featuring again, says that culture in its broader sense is the way of life of people. And to Haywood, sociologists and anthropologists tend to distinguish between culture and nature. The former encompassing that which is passed on from one generation to the next generation by learning rather than through biological inheritance. Political scientists, however, use the term in a narrower sense to refer to people's psychological orientation. Political culture, to Haywood, therefore, is a pattern of orientation to political objects such as parties, government, the constitution, expressed in beliefs, symbols, and values. So what is our attitude towards the president, for instance? What is our attitude towards parliament? How do we respect or how do we relate to the office of the president, even if the president was not somebody that we voted for? Jackson and Jackson have argued that culture includes intellectual development in many areas, including the art, the architecture, cuisine, the literature, music, politics. So it delineates really the distinctive attributes of groups and societies, masses and elites and so on and so forth. Now, political culture is just one aspect of the overall culture of a nation. So take note. That's why I'm saying that we're talking about political culture. To Jackson and Jackson, therefore, political culture refers to the broad pattern of values and attitudes that individuals and society hold towards what we call political objects or objects of politics. Political culture creates norms, beliefs about how people should behave, and these norms in turn influence social behavior, because the way you perceive something will necessarily shape your attitude towards particular thing. If you respect somebody, you will not want to insult the person, precisely. So let's look at Samuel P. Huntington's view. Huntington thinks that culture is so important that the world politics was entering or is entering the new phase where the new conflict will be the one of, or what he called the clash of civilization. He continues that nation states will remain the most powerful actors in the world. Yes, why not? But the principal conflict of global politics, in other words, the conflict between nations within the international system, will occur between nations and groups of different civilizations. So maybe Muslims and Christians and all of that. So the clash of civilization will dominate global politics in his view. And the fault line between civilization will be the battle lines of the future. That is why normally when the Americans are waging any war, they will tell the people that this is not about religion or this is not about civilization. It's about what is wrong. It's about terrorists. It's about people who are killing. The generalized conception. So following from the above definitions, one can infer plausibly that culture is the orientation of the people in terms of their beliefs, their attitudes, their symbols, their values towards the objects of politics in the state. So it consists of empirical belief about expressive political symbols and values and other orientations of the members of the society towards, as I said, the object of politics. So it is a product of collective history of political system. And it is rooted both in public events and private experiences, and embodies a society's central political values. You also need to know that there are some factors that influence the politics of a nation. And when we are talking about the politics of any nation, some of the critical things that you want to look at is that we are talking about its religion, the economy. The health of the economy determines how the politics is conducted. So people are prepared to die, or people are prepared to insult. Some people are prepared to do anything within the state when poverty is very high. So whenever you see the incidence of vote buying, what we normally refer to as moneycracy, that should tell you that the people are poor. Because if you want to give me money in order to vote, then it should be enough money that will help me construct perhaps a university in my hometown. Then you are really bribing me. But 10 Ghana, 50 Ghana, 100 Ghana, useless, waste of my time. So its religion is important. You must also be interested in the tradition of the people, very important. The social structure of the country is important. People's perception of the role of government is important. That is why I've always said that government should be careful in managing the hopes and desires of the people. If you promise the moon, when you come to power, people will expect the moon. And if you are not able to deliver, and there's a yawning gap between expectation and performance, you have a problem to contend with. The relationship between the rulers and the ruled is also critical. Political culture and public opinion. Both political culture and public opinion look at attitude towards politics. The aim of political culture is to tap basic general feelings, really, towards politics and government. What is the attitude towards the legislature? What is the attitude towards politics generally? Do people see politics as something that is demonic? Do they see something as a nobling activity that will promote the well-being and the welfare of society? Or they think that politics is about manipulation, deceit, the use of lies, among others? This is important. Public opinion, on the other hand, focuses on the views about specific leaders and policies. So what is your view on perhaps school feeding program? What is your view on, let's say, maybe NHIS? What is your view on livelihood empowerment programs? What is your view on perhaps the role of maybe your MP within your area, among others? These are the things that we're talking about, public opinion. So whilst political culture looks at the underpinnings of legitimacy, the gut feelings that sustain a political system, public opinion seeks responses to current questions. So the methodology of political culture and opinion, sometimes they do overlap. Let's look at the civic culture. Amon and Weber, really, in their pioneering work, conducted first some of the very important cross-country study of political culture in the 1959 and published the result in the civic culture subsequently. Based on the surveys conducted in the United States, Britain, West Germany, Italy, Mexico, this landmark study tried to identify the political culture in which liberal democracy is more likely to survive and develop. In other words, Amon and Weber set out to identify the political culture that most effectively upheld democratic politics. They interviewed over 5,000 people in the aforementioned countries. The authors sought to measure national political attitudes by testing three important variables. What impact the people felt governments had on their lives. That's first. what obligation they felt they had towards government. That's another one. And 3, what they expected from government. Very important. The conclusions are far-reaching. So the key thing that we're going to do now is look at the types of culture. I indicated that we'll look at 3 major types: participant political culture, subject political culture, and the parochial political culture. So let's take participant political culture. People understand that they are citizens and they pay their attention to politics. They are proud of their country, its political system, and they're generally willing to discuss it, really. They believe that they can influence the politics of the state. They will not sit down and think that country broke or no country broke will be inside, quote and unquote. They think that they can really influence the politics of the state. They show a high level of political competence. They know how to accomplish something politically. They know where to get their leaders. They know how to get their MP and so on. They maintain that they take pride in voting. They believe that voting is important. They will never shy away from it. And so on. Participant political culture is clearly the ideal soil in which to sustain democracy. So really, if we want to develop as a democratic state, we need to be able to build enough competent political culture so that people can sustain the system for all of us. The second one will be the subject political culture. People in this category understand that they are citizens, yes. They pay attention to politics, yes. But they are not really involved, or they are involved in a very passive way. They are not really keen about politics and so on. The citizens see themselves as subjects of a government rather than as participants. They are not really keen. They follow political news, but they are really not proud of their country's political system. They feel uncomfortable in speaking about politics. There are people who normally will tell you that they cannot be bothered. When you talk to them about politics, they think that politics is a dirty game. It is played by dirty people. They are not interested. They feel that they can influence politics only to the extent of speaking with the local official. It does not really occur to them to really organize a group. They think that they cannot really change much. Democracy has more difficulty sinking, roots in such cultures. If you have such cultures deeply rooted in any society, it's difficult to build a vibrant democracy. You also have the last one, which we would not want to encourage at all, is a parochial political culture. As the name suggests, citizens are only vaguely aware of the political system, existence of a central government. They normally identify with the immediate locality, hence the term parochial. They can't be bothered. They don't think outside their communities. They take no pride in their country's political system and expect very little of it. They pay no attention to politics because they have little knowledge about it. They really speak about it. They have neither the desire nor the even ability to participate in it. They have no sense of political competence or efficacy, and they feel powerless in the face of existing institutions. Any attempt to grow democracy in this one will not even be dangerous, but it will be suicidal. Because whoever attempts to plant democracy in such a system is bound to fail, because you will not have the enabling culture to sustain it. We'll look at the history and the methods, really. Culture has been used as an explanatory variable for as long as human beings have been studying politics. However, the scientific field of political culture was established in the United States in the 50s. Before that time, scholars often linked values and attitudes to behavior in national character, what they call the character studies. The conclusion of such single country studies ended with very crude and usually blanket description, such as Asians are unscrutable, Germans are authoritarian, Americans are rugged individuals, and Canadians peaceful, honest, and even boring, so on. These stereotypes, which we have all around us, are often based on erroneous impressions. In point of fact, they may tell more about the observer than even the observed. The historical circumstances were significant in bringing to the forefront political culture studies. And after the World War II, France, Britain, the Dutch, Italians, and other Portuguese or colonies began moving towards independent statehood, and the decision had to be made about what kind of political forms these new nations could adopt. So as a result, most of the countries which emerged in Asia, Africa, South America adopted very ambitious Western-style constitutions, political institutions, legal systems, and so on. Most of these countries in no time gave way to authoritarian military leaders as we have them. Most Western scholars realize that ideas and institutions that serve their own countries very well perhaps were not serving our people, were perhaps inappropriate for the new state, and that is why they adopted a cross-country study, comparative study, so to speak. So by the late 50s, many political scientists were beginning to really examine political culture and perhaps its effect on the community, the regimes, and so on. Those stereotypes and generalization did as this. Political culture studies, they determine really objectively what kind of orientations are held by the people towards really the object of politics, which is very important for political stability. So the type of attitudes that we have, the type of beliefs that we have is important in crafting a particular political system. And that is why I've always argued that if we really want to develop as a people, then we need to build democratic citizenship. We need the right attitudes. So a number of methods have been employed. Survey research, examining the opinions of political elite, content analysis, projective techniques, and so on and so forth. These things have all been adopted in studying the attitudes, the beliefs, and so on of our people. The last one, which I think is the last, will be the changing political cultures. Governments who led their people into calamity have the tendency of creating and reaping mistrust, or who lead their people into calamity. So if you are not able to really create a stable system that is built on trust, and system that really delivers and promises hope to your people, you are likely to reap mistrust. Trust is not sold on the market. You develop it. It's your deeds that will demonstrate the trust. It looks as if we are living in a low-trust society. Very dangerous for the sustenance of our system. Economic problems are among the most important factors that affect the political culture of a country. I've indicated that. So if there are problems within the economy, and if there's massive unemployment and there's inequality, especially where few people are enjoying the resources of the state, it creates a very dangerous political culture for all of us. It is true to state that states, as the economy of a country changes, to state that as the economy of the country changes, the political culture of the people also changes. That's important. So it is a fact that the political culture of a country changes with the changing, economic, trends. It does not change as rapidly as public opinion. Take note, but political culture at any point in time is a combination of long remembered and deeply held attitudes, especially with current situations, current beliefs, and so on. That's what we call the latent mass cultures. Political culture of a country is not uniform and monolithic. One can usually find within one country differences. So take note. The elite usually have different political attitudes from the masses. They are more participatory and more interested in politics. They are more inclined to vote, the elite. They are more inclined to protest injustice. They are more inclined to form interest groups, and they are more inclined towards forming associations. They are more inclined towards contesting for political or public office. Research has found that the more education a person has, the more likely he or she is to participate in politics, for instance. So one of the things that we can also do to enhance our democracy is also encourage people to be well educated, and that can also promote participant political culture. So usually better educated people know how to participate in politics or political activity. They have greater sense of self-confidence when even writing a letter, speaking at meetings, organizing a group. They have the feelings that they can influence the political decisions of the country. The educated and the poor, the uneducated and the poor, on the other hand, lack the knowledge of the self-confidence to do any of the things attributed to the elite. They feel powerless. They are therefore incapable of influencing any decision in a country. They have a firm belief that what they do can hardly make any difference, and therefore they may not want to participate. So we'd like to educate more of our people. The elites, the difference in participation, different participation in politics between the elite and the masses is one of the greatest ironies of democracy. That is why we have a theory called, in the theory and in law, politics is open to all. in a democracy. In practice, however, some participate more than others. This is a fact of life. The elite participate more than the masses. The right to vote is a mere starting point for political participation. It does not guarantee equal access to decision making at all. So the mass political culture of apathy and indifference towards politics effectively relegate the potential of mass voting. An elite political culture of competence and efficacy amplifies this influence. So while the masses think that they cannot influence anything, the elite think that they have the capacity, they have the education, they have the information to do a number of things within the political system. That is why we always argue that education is very important. There are differences among ethnic, religious, and also religious groups or regional groups in a country. When the differentiating qualities are strong in a particular group, we say that group forms a subculture. It is not appropriate to label any distinct group in the society as having a distinct culture. It is, however, true that some subcultures are very easy to identify. Usually groups with different languages and tendencies to break away from the rest of the population surely qualifies as a subculture. For instance, the French-speaking people of Quebec, Canada, sometimes in the past threatened to break away from the Federation and become an independent country. When subcultures are very distinct, the political system itself may be threatened with instability. That is when a group of people decide that they want to break away from the country as a whole. So we really don't want to encourage the development of subcultures, because when they become strong, they undermine the stability of the state. Countries with several subcultures and competing loyalties are facing crisis of identification, or what we call crisis of identity. Very dangerous. It creates a lot of instability. Even though it is very difficult to integrate all subcultures into the mainstream culture in the state, failure to attempt such integration, the subcultures will in future claim they no longer belong to that country. That's the point I talked about. That the emergence of subculture sometimes is an indication that the country perhaps will implode one day. And that is why governments all over the world try very much to avoid the development of these subcultures within the state. Thank you very much for the opportunity.